This podcast is sponsored in part by Benjamin Hart.
That's me!
And yours truly, Zach Arnold.
And by participation from listeners like you. So let's tune in to another episode of
IPC.
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 IPC. IPC. IPC.
IPC.
IPC. The Intergalactic Peace Coalition podcast.
All the galaxies.
All for you.
Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Intergalactic Peace Coalition podcast, also known as the IPC. We're broadcasting live right here on YouTube on Fandom Empire, coming to you with another episode. It's been a while, guys. I should start off with an apology. We missed the last episode. Stuff happened. All right. We had some scheduling issues. It was a deal. All right. We couldn't do the episode, but I'm very glad to be back now. And yeah, I've missed you. I've missed you guys. I've missed you a lot. And as you know, Zach is not with us currently. All right. He's off pursuing his career. He's doing awesome things elsewhere. He cannot be with us tonight or for another few weeks, but I think, well, what the heck else to do than to get an excellent co-host to replace Zach for the evening? And I think there's no better choice than Mr. Steven Schinder. Steven, what's going on, man?
Hey, great to be here. I kind of feel like whenever Zach comes back, he needs to put out a video like Steve from Blue's Clues, where he's like, I never forgot about you, or I never stopped thinking about you, or whatever it is that he said.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that Blue's Clues video, man, got to me. And I don't even remember having like vivid memories of watching Blue's Clues, but like, Steve, man, you made me cry.
Yeah, like that was one of my earliest like things I was into was Blue's Clues. Like my favorite color was green because Steve's favorite color was green, and I love what. Like I've caught glimpses of what it's become with the more recent show Blue's Clues and You, and I love that they still have cameos from like Steve and Joe every once in a while. So yeah, it's in a good direction, I think.
It's great. It's great. That Steve guy, I can't remember his last name. He's just
Steve Burns.
Yeah, it's great. Just great to see him every once in a while. He seems to be, I don't know what he's doing now, but he's definitely not forgotten Blue's Clues, and he hasn't forgot us. Oh, it's so sweet. So okay, this week we are talking about something that we've done. Okay, this is another top 5 episode. You guys love these. We love these too. And we haven't done one of these actually in quite a while. We actually haven't done one on YouTube yet. So this is our first ever top 5 in the video format. And what better way to start it off than with top 5 fan theories? Now, this one was quite a wild idea that I cannot take credit for. Something that I halfway through doing this, like prepping for this episode, I was like, did we make a mistake? Because like we weren't getting a lot of responses. People were like, whoa, this is a really hard question. I'm like, yeah, I know it's really hard. But props to Jesse Bennett, who this is actually something I haven't talked about publicly, I don't think. Jesse Bennett was right here like a week ago.
Oh, wow.
He came here and he visited. And it was so great to see him. Because obviously I'd never met Jesse before, and just one of the nicest guys you can. He's in the chat. I'm not just pulling your leg here, Jesse. I'm not just trying to stroke your ego. Legitimately, one of the nicest people. We played Sabak. He taught me how to play Sabak, the actual game.
He said he was learning that. Yeah,
it's great. He's much better. I actually won a couple games. I think it was just by accident, but it was a lot of fun. But Jesse came by. It was a lot of fun. And then I noticed a Patreon message. I actually don't know when he sent this message, but I was looking through the Patreon messages, and lo and behold, there's a message from Jesse. And he said, quote, Top 5 request. Fan theories. For reference, I'm thinking ones that are well known and not ones created for a small circle of friends. So I'll share my 5, and if you want clarification, let me know. 5 being lowest rated and 1 being the highest. That's how we do it, Jesse. That's how we do it. 5. There's a particular order of these things. So I'll start off with his. He says, number 5, Ferris Bueller is a made up character by Cameron. And really quick, I need to preface this in case you guys want to drop some theories into, or particularly 5 theories into the chat right now. You want to submit some, we'll still take some, but basically any fan theory. Now, no one's actually sent in any that they've like made up themselves. It's all been mostly just popular fan theories, but it can be one that's popular, that's obscure, that's been debunked, and there's some that's actually been confirmed that I've noticed in the show notes. So I'm looking forward to getting into those. But I'll continue with Jesse's list really quick. And he says, number 4, Sandy died at the beginning of the movie Grease. Have you seen Grease? Because I haven't.
I remember seeing it as a kid because like other members of my family watched it a lot. I really loved it. It's not something I'm really into, really. I guess you could describe it as like the original High School Musical. Like it's a musical about teenagers and whatever. I know that it's the one with John Travolta, right? Like he's in that.
I think.
So,
I haven't seen it, so I can't confirm.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that you haven't seen. But yeah, like this theory sounds vaguely familiar, but it's been so long since I've seen Grease that I don't know which character is which and how this affects the rest of the movie. But like there are theories like that where it's like this character is dead the whole time, and yeah, so I don't know, maybe it works. I don't know.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of like so and so was dead the whole time, like it's all a dream. Like there's a lot of things like that.
The Ferris Bueller one is one that I am familiar with. Have you seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off? Or
what do you think? Take a guess. I've seen a bit of it. Of it.
Okay, I'm guessing that's a no, but yeah, that is a really popular one. It's basically like because Ferris just does whatever he wants and Cameron gets dragged along and doesn't try stopping him. So the idea is that Ferris is like his imaginary alter ego who pushes him to go along with all these different things. And it's a fun theory to think about.
Oh my gosh. Where were we? Okay. He says number 3, E.T. is secretly a Jedi. Now this one I think holds a lot of weight because we know the E.T. Star Wars connection. There's an E.T. The E.T. connection is that E.T. is walking down the street. He's in Halloween costume, and then Yoda walks by and he's like, home, implying that like he knows Yoda maybe. And then you have in Phantom Menace, the Greblips or whatever the names are. Spielberg go backwards.
Yeah. That Easter egg, like that pretty much like kind of confirms it, I guess. The thing is that since Star Wars takes place a long time ago, then maybe E.T. doesn't know Yoda personally, but has seen that species. And I guess somehow George Lucas made movies based on Star Wars history. Like, I don't know, but like E.T.'s powers are like, they look very like telekinetic and kind of force related. So you could like connect it that way too.
Yeah, I think that's another kind of wrinkle to it, is that like, oh, maybe he has some kind of special powers like his species does, so like it would kind of make sense. I don't know. I really like that though. I think E.T. is definitely from the Star Wars galaxy. He may not be a Jedi, but who knows? Number 2 on Jesse's list is Ash from Pokemon is in a coma the entire time.
Yeah,
again, someone's in a coma or dreaming or dead.
Yeah, this one I am familiar with. I'm guessing he's referring to the idea that in the first episode of the Pokemon anime, when like he gets electrocuted by Pikachu, he gets put in a coma, and that's why throughout all the 25 or 26 or whatever seasons of Pokemon, he's still 10 years old.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, there's also a similar one I've heard where like Ash gets turned to stone in the first movie and then gets brought back to life, and maybe that's why, or maybe he doesn't age because someone gave him an Everstone, which is what prevents a Pokemon from evolving. So yeah, there's all sorts of crazy ones like that.
Yeah, you have to like come up with like, yeah, these shows go on for years and years and years, like the Rugrats, like the babies never grow up. Like, what's up with that?
Well, except for in the spinoff, All Grown Up. Where they're 10 years older.
Yeah, you're right. The only other example I think of is like Bart Simpson, like all the Simpsons kids. The show's been going for like 25 years, and none of the kids have grown up. So
they just won't let it die.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Okay, and number one, he saved the best for last. Darth Jar Jar, the infamous Darth Jar Jar. Jar Jar is the Sith Lord. This one shows up a lot tonight, from what I've seen.
Right.
And it's a good one. It's something that I'm like, I love the idea of like giving Jar Jar more credit than he's worth.
I mean,
he's up to something.
So it's something that I think is funny for Robot Chicken stuff. Like they have that one skit where it turns out he's the one behind it the whole time, puts on the hood. But for in-universe Star Wars itself, I prefer for Jar Jar to be the hero. Like maybe it wasn't all executed the best in Phantom Menace, but in Clone Wars, it's comedy gold. Like Jar Jar works really well in animation, I feel.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, like I prefer him being the hero as opposed to like the villain mastermind behind it all type of thing.
Yeah, I think it's just a fun. It's like I love theories because they're theories. It's just something to play with, and like, you know, like the whole emergency powers thing and him like being this linchpin and all this is like, is he just stupid or is he like, is he up to something? Like, I love it. But really quick, Jesse adds this thing. I don't know if he meant for us to read this out, but I'm gonna read it out. He says, another top 5 request: John Williams scores that are not the main theme or ending theme of any movie. I'm still building my list, but wanted to submit the idea. I like that a lot because we've done John Williams themes. Obviously, we've done like John Williams tracks, I think, but I would love to see like a obscure John Williams tracks, like something like character themes, or not necessarily the Star Wars theme, which is, you know, or the Jaws theme, are all great. Like they're timeless.
Right. And I'm looking at the chat, and Jesse says there's also the theory that Plagueis was alive during episode 1 and Maul was the secret apprentice, and the death of Plagueis happened between episodes 1 and 2. So yeah, so this is actually kind of what happened in Legends, in the Darth. The Darth Plagueis novel. Like Plagueis is still alive during that movie. Like I remember reading that book back in the day and being like, "Whoa, he was alive then!" And like, yeah, and like by the end of the book, Plagueis dies, and I think he's aware of Maul, if I remember correctly. I could be mistaken, but yeah, like that was the thing in Legends. I'm not sure if that's what they're running with in their internal canonical backstory, but who knows? Like maybe someday they'll elaborate on that.
Yeah, that's the whole like what Matthew's saying in the chat. Like that's the James Luceno novel, Darth Plagueis. Like it's straight up kind of like I didn't expect it to, like you think of Darth Plagueis being way back in the past, but nah, it kind of really intersects. And obviously it's not technically canon anymore, but I think there's something to be said for its legitimacy, because it's freaking a great book anyway.
Yeah, it's a great story either way. It's worth reading.
Yeah, exactly. Up next, we have our good buddy Joey Mays. Steven, you want to tell us what Joey has to say?
Yeah, and funny thing, Joey Mays in the chat made me laugh a bit because he was like, I'm still not convinced Ben has seen Star Wars.
Maybe not. Maybe I've been faking it all this time.
Yeah, and he just said, I think my favorite fan theory is that Ben does spell heart with an E. Okay, so for his actual top 5. So number 5, Disney. So Disney, and he says Frozen, Tangled, Tarzan, and The Little Mermaid take place in the same universe. Should I keep reading the list, or do we want to like?
You can just read through it, and then we'll talk about it after, probably.
Okay, and then number 4 says The Simpsons. Homer is in a coma, so another coma one. Number 3, Ghostbusters. The Ghostbusters died when they crossed streams. Okay.
All right.
Number 2, Toy Story. Andy's mom in the Toy Story universe is Emily, Jesse's original owner.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and number 1 is another Pixar one. It's a very popular one, which is all of the Pixar films take place in the same universe. Not a lot of diversity amongst my choices, but these are my favorites. Fair enough, Joey.
Fair enough, but I think it's a great list, and the Pixar Theory is one that shows up. I think it's a very popular one we've talked about on the show, me and Zach, many times. And it's one that I think that the Pixar studio has like leaned into it. Like it's become so prevalent. Like you're like, wait a minute, is this really just a coincidence? There's so many things because they put Easter eggs from other things. Like there's a Buzz Lightyear and Finding Nemo and stuff like that. So that's really great.
Yeah, with the Pixar Theory. So I believe that all the movies and Pixar shows, I guess, are in the same universe or multiverse. Because of course you have that fantasy world and Onward and the monster world and whatnot.
Right.
But the Pixar Theory itself, it has like this very specific timeline where it's like you have like the Incredibles stuff in the 60s because that's when it seems to take place, and then you have all this other stuff that takes place in present day, like late 20th, early 21st century, and then you get the future of WALL-E, and supposedly after or between the present and that, I think is when Cars takes place, like machines replace humans, and then after WALL-E, like the humans come back and plants grow again, and you have a Bug's Life. So I don't think Pixar has this grand plan of when everything takes place. I'm not one who subscribes to that specific chronology, but it is a really fun thing to think about, that like whoever put it together, like it was a very creative way of like thinking, oh, what if it was like this? Like I think it's really fun and entertaining, even if I don't agree with like the whole timeline thing or whatever.
Yeah, it's just that there's so much diversity in the stories that Pixar has made that you can easily make those connections. You can, there's this world where cars are just, and there's no humans. Well, what happened? Well, maybe it came after, the apocalypse, and that's what we see in WALL-E, and like there's this whole the
maybe
toys uploads.
Maybe humans evolved into monsters and the doors are time machines.
Yeah, exactly. Like I love just like the mental gymnastics they go through to get it, but it's like, okay, I kind of like this. I like where this is going, even though this is completely ridiculous. There's a whole website. You can go pixartheory.com, I think, is a real website. It will walk you through the whole thing. I don't know if it's updated for the new movies, but it's most impressive with how they've done that.
Right.
The other one with the Andy's mom is Emily from the flashbacks in Toy Story 2. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's one that I thought about as a kid. Like, I was wondering if that was intentional, but like as I grew older, I thought, if that was intentional, I feel like they would have leaned into it within the film itself. Like, on one hand, it would kind of make the universe smaller if Andy's mom was Emily, but if Toy Story 2 had been made with like an ending where like Andy's mom goes into the room and sees Jesse and she like smiles and like assumes that he got new toys from cowboy camp or whatever, and like if they had done that and leaned into it, maybe it would have worked. Maybe it would have been very emotional and heartfelt. But they haven't leaned into it in any of the movies that came after, which makes you think that that's probably not what Pixar has in mind. But yeah, I always thought
it was weird in Toy Story 2 when like he gets all those new toys and like he just says, "Oh, thanks, Mom." He's like, there's never ever any conversation about where these toys came from and the fact that
never questions
nothing to do with bringing them home. Like they just accept it. So whatever, just right over that. Ghostbusters. The fact that I think I've heard this one before, and I'm not super familiar with Ghostbusters. Joey is. There's the fact that they're all dead, like they cross the streams, and everything else is like a dream, I guess. All the movies afterwards, but I like that because like it just ties in a whole like don't cross the streams. You shouldn't, like you're gonna die. And that would be very interesting.
Yeah. And of course, the Homer in a coma thing also explains all the many seasons of The Simpsons and people not growing up.
Right, exactly. Because like if it's just his dreams, then they would be like just stuck in the same time period forever. Which would explain like Bart and all his kids just staying the same.
Yeah, like technology advances, but the people look the same throughout all those years.
Yeah, and it would totally make sense for Homer to like just something happened to him. He's just in a coma.
Yeah, just skateboards over the gorge and crashes.
And also the Disney one. I haven't looked too much far into this, but I believe there's like some statues in Frozen, and I think there's some connections to the Little Mermaid. It's all like there's some stuff going on there that like makes it all. There's some vague things and make it this because they're all kind of vaguely fantasy magical, so except maybe Tarzan, so like they kind of work in the same universe.
Yeah, so from what I remember, I believe the main characters from Tangled, Rapunzel and Flynn, I think his name is, I think that they have cameos in Frozen, like attending some sort of event. And like the Tarzan thing is that Tarzan is, I think, the brother of the two girls in Frozen. Like their parents get shipwrecked, and the thing is that like the parents end up in Africa, and that's when like Tarzan happens. And I think the director of Frozen even confirmed this. So, or one of the directors of Frozen. I think he had two directors.
Oh, really?
But yeah. So, yeah, I think that one might hold some water if it's coming from him.
Yeah. I love it when directors are like, that's true. That's true. It happened. Like, that's the way it was. Like, wow. Right. Okay. So that's great. Okay. Up next, we've got our good buddy Dan Grievous, who is also a patron. And he says, number 5, E.T. is a Jedi. That's coming back. Number 4, one I've never heard of. The kids from Ed, Ed, and Eddie are in purgatory. Okay, we'll get to that. Yeah. Number 3, the Joker in The Dark Knight is a war veteran. I like that one. Number 2, Chris Pratt's character in Jurassic World movies is actually a grown-up version of the kid in Alan Grant's Scared in Jurassic Park. That's really good. And speaking of post-apocalyptic, maybe dark stuff in Disney, number 1, Aladdin is set in a post-apocalyptic future. And I like that one because I think I don't know, there's some references in there, and there's some stuff that the genie says that's just like, oh, I've been trapped in this lamp for like a million years or whatever. Like, if that's the case, like how does that work time-wise? Is this supposed to be in the far past? I think it works better if it's like, okay, yeah, everything fell apart and this is in the future.
Yeah, and that explains all the pop culture references he makes that wouldn't exist in like our past. So yeah, I love that theory. It's hilarious. So the Ed, Ed, and Eddie and Purgatory theory is one I've heard before. I'm guessing you didn't watch this cartoon growing up, Ben. Is that correct?
No, I really like Ed, Ed, and Eddie.
Oh, wow. I underestimated you.
Yeah, you did. Because that's legitimately one of my favorite cartoons. I don't know.
Yeah, it was one of my favorites too.
But man, every time I like see it on, I'm like, oh, so much nostalgia. It's insane. It's an insane show. Like, I think it was like before, like there's some really insane cartoons on now that I think they're like, kids watch this. What? Like that was like the bridge into like, I think creating this generation. But yeah, it's great because it is like, it's so wacky and it's so kind of edgy and dark at times that you're like, okay, maybe this has legs.
Yeah. How can my feet smell if they don't have any noses, or whatever Ed says? But yeah, like this theory, I guess each of the characters represents something. Like I don't remember the whole like specifics of it. I think it might be on Creepypasta possibly.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. I've also at one point thought of a similar Ed and Eddie theory because like you know how I'm like a huge Twin Peaks fan, right? Like
oh yeah, absolutely
weird supernatural type of show. So the main character Dale Cooper at one point he says like after he's recovering from a gun wound, he's like the pain is receding into a dark cul-de-sac in my mind or something like that. And so and so like my fan theory is that Ed and Eddie actually takes place in that cul-de-sac in his mind. and like there's this lady in the show called the Log Lady. She has like this wooden log that she talks to, and that very much reminds me of Johnny and Plank. So
yeah. Dude, oh my god, there's a woman in Twin Peaks that has a log she talks to.
Yeah,
that is amazing. Oh my gosh, that's one of those you're like, wow, okay, this is something here. That's weirdly specific and similar to have two characters that talk to a plank of wood. Wow.
Yeah, you could go down like a whole rabbit hole of Twin Peaks theories. There's a lot of them. Like if any people ever get into the show, they'll probably come up with their own and see what others have come up with. It's a lot.
It's like the whole, you'll get, these videos on YouTube like, oh yeah, The Simpsons predicted all these things in the future in like the 90s, like Donald Trump being president, all this kind of stuff. And you're like, nah, whatever. And then you start watching, I'm like, whoa, what were these writers doing? Because my God, they got so many things right.
Yeah, it's like South Park. Simpsons did it.
All right.
Yeah. So the Joker and the Dark Knight being a war veteran, that one is one that makes a lot of sense, I think.
Yeah, especially in the era that it came out in, and being that, the Dark Knight, that is very grounded universe. It's something something happened to this guy to make him like he is. And he obviously got, you want to know how it got these scars?
Yeah.
He got the scars somehow. So he never actually told us. Maybe there was some truth to that, but I like that idea.
Yeah. What do you think of this Jurassic World one?
I like it a lot. I think it's one that I think it adds a lot of depth to that universe and adds a lot of character, and it just makes perfect sense that, like, okay, yeah, it would be that kid. Like Alan Grant scared him straight. And they could confirm it. This is one, and these,
there's still time, I guess.
any of these rumors, some of these theories have been confirmed. Some of them have been debunked, but like this one, we're apparently going to have Alan Grant and Owen Grady sharing some screen time in the next Jurassic World movie, Jurassic World 6 or whatever it's called. So
Dominion.
So maybe Chris Pratt's like, oh hey, I met you when I was a kid. You scared the living hell out of me, and then I grew to love raptors. So I think I love the idea, and like, I could see them confirming that. That would be interesting.
Oh, yeah. So should I go ahead and read this next one that we have here from?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So this is from Chad B, who says, I don't have any top fan theories because after they become not real, I forget about them or I stop caring about them. And then he says in parentheses, you can read this on the show if you want.
Okay, Chad, we did. We read it on the show. Are you happy? I mean, technically speaking,
IPC'd.
Chad is a patron. So technically speaking, he could write whatever he wants. We are obligated to read it on the show. So we really didn't have a choice there. But
yeah, I mean, if you write an F-bomb, Ben has to read it. That's the rules.
Oh boy.
No, I'm kidding. I don't know.
Yeah, don't do that. Please don't do that. We're gonna get kicked off YouTube. We don't want that to happen. Sean will kill us. All right. So let's not push any buttons here. And I don't want to say anything that I don't want to have to say. But yeah, Chad, I appreciate the honesty. Maybe, I guess. Okay, whatever. And as I said, Chad, Dan, Joey, and Jesse, they are all patrons, and we are thankful for them and their patronage. And you can become a patron yourself by going to patreon.com/IPC podcast. And special shout out to Joey Mays and Jesse Bennett for their continued support at the shout out friend tier. And you can get bonuses. You can get access to the show notes, which I actually have to send this over to you guys because I was busy earlier. But you get access to a special Peacekeeper group. You get top billing at each and every one of these top 5 episodes. So your thing is guaranteed to be read on the show at the top of the show. And no question, even if you don't give us a list, we'll still read your comment on the show. And you might even get a chance to join us on the show. Maybe there may be some opportunities coming up in the very near future for you guys to actually be on the show. That would be great. And real quick, I also have to give a shout out to our good buddies over at Question Possible Answer. Great new podcast that I actually just listened to the first episode. And really great, just like it's like this, what we're talking about here, but like really more in depth and exploring some different things. And obviously we're talking about what ifs and whatever. And it kind of goes really in depth with that. So definitely come join us at Question Possible Answer. Come join us. That doesn't make any sense. I'm reading the thing. So I'm just going to say,
come join us in listening to
pretend that I'm Jesse for a second. Come join us at Question Possible Answer as we discuss some of our favorite movies with a twist, ignoring canon. Every question is on the table unless the answer is given in the series. We also introduce our own fun theories and possibilities. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Question Possible Answer, Facebook, and question_possible_answer on Instagram. And it's now available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and other podcast services. Definitely go check them out. But we got more lists, guys. This ain't over. All right. We've got a few more. First, again, is not a list, but he's so nice. He's such a great guy. We're going to read it on the show anyway, because this is Matthias, our good buddy. He says, my theory is this is going to be a great podcast to listen to, as usual, because you guys are fantastic. Well, Matthias, I think you're fantastic, all right? Right back at you. You're fantastic, all right? So that's how it's going to be. Thank you so much, Matthias. You were the best, man.
Yeah, I think that fan theory holds a lot of water, yeah.
Well, we can only hope that it comes true. We only hope it doesn't get debunked in the next hour. Good Lord.
Right.
But real quick, I'll go over. This is a lot. This is Robin sent us like a lot. I'm going to try to run through this really quick so we don't spend the whole night on it. And then we'll try to process this all. Okay, so he says, and I'm going to start because some of you put your top number ones at the top, but to spite you, I'm going to start at the bottom with the number 5, because that's how I go. Okay, so he says at number 5, this is Robin Glader, by the way. He says, number 5, Peter Parker is the little kid in the Iron Man mask in Iron Man 2. Marvel fans have long speculated that the little kid behind the mask that Iron Man saved at the Stark Expo is none other than Spider-Man's Peter Parker. Never mind that Spider-Man didn't officially enter the MCU until 2016. We all know that if there was a giant science exposition in his hometown neighborhood of Queens, young Peter would definitely find a way to be there. And I think I'll talk about it this more in a second, but I'm pretty sure this one's been confirmed. This is actually a theory that was around for a while and got confirmed. Number 4, Tom Hardy in Mad Max Fury Road is actually the feral kid from the Road Warrior. So he says, some fans have a theory that Hardy isn't the original Max at all, but a character that we've seen before who has taken over the title. The guess is that Hardy's Max is actually the feral kid who appears in Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior. The aging works, and the fact that Max speaks mostly in grunts like the child did is another validation of the theory, plus the kid, as an old man, narrates The Road Warrior, just like Hardy's disembodied voice narrates Fury Road. I like that a lot. He says, number 3, Mr. Bean is an alien. Every episode of Mr. Bean starts with him coming down in a beam of light and landing on the street. He doesn't know how to act like a normal human. He mostly just looks at the people around him and tries to imitate them. Fair enough. Let's see. The new nightmare was a dream. In the Nightmare on Elm Street series, Heath Langenkamp plays
Heather.
the character. What?
It's Heather, not Heath.
Oh, wow! I misgendered and everything. Like that's bad. Heather Langenkamp plays the character Nancy in the first. See, I would have called it Nancy. In the first, third, and seventh films, except we're led to believe that in the seventh film, New Nightmare, she's not playing Nancy, but she's playing herself, Heather Langenkamp. The film is about how Freddy is trying to escape the fictional world and enter ours. He's been kept in the fictional world because everyone thinks he is fictional, but of movies. But now that he's been several years since the last film, Freddy is regaining his power and can enter the real world. The theory states that Heather is not playing herself, but she's actually still playing Nancy. And the whole film is a dream. When we last saw Nancy in the third film, she was dying in the arms of Kristen Parker, a character with special dream powers. The theory states that Kristen put her dream where her life was just a movie to give her peace, but Freddy saw that was happening and entered the dream. I'm going to be honest here. This is me talking now. I've never seen any of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, and I have no freaking idea what he's talking about here, but I'm sure
I've seen all of them. Yeah.
All right. Okay. We'll let you explain that in just a second. I'm sure that makes sense to everyone else but me. And number one, the Prestige, Nikola Tesla's duplication machine doesn't actually work. This theory is too complicated to explain further in short text. You can look it up if you're curious. If true, this would turn the film from a sci-fi film to just a very clever thriller. I have not seen the Prestige, but I've seen videos about it. And I know that like there's a duplication machine, and stuff happens, and I think they multiply Hugh Jackman maybe, and then.
I haven't seen it either, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't want to give away any spoilers. I don't know much about it, but like the whole idea is like Nikola Tesla creates a duplication machine, but then maybe it's not a duplication machine. Maybe it doesn't work, and there's actually like multiples of something. I don't know. Maybe there's brothers involved. I don't know, but it's a lot. But getting back to the Nightmare on Elm Street stuff, do you get all that?
Yeah. So I actually have thoughts on all these other ones that he mentioned.
We'll go through them.
So basically, in the original Nightmare on Elm Street film series, there were like 6 films. Like the 6th one was called Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare. And the 7th one takes place in the quote unquote real world. And basically, the actress who played Heather in the 1st and 3rd movie is playing herself. And then Freddy Krueger escapes from the fictional world into the real world and is basically trying to haunt her there. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of horror stories or movies where they set it in Hollywood or in a real world that makes the other stuff fictional. So I actually really like this idea that like New Nightmare is not the real world, but rather a dream that that Nancy has like I guess as she is dying. It's been a while since I've seen these movies, but basically saying that it's not on a higher plane of existence than the other Nightmare on Elm Street movies. So I really like that one. The Mr. Bean is an alien theory. Yeah, I feel like everyone who's like watched the show and seen the opening credits like has had that thought cross their mind, and he's very weird. He acts very strange. So there's a lot in favor of that, I think. I
think, yeah, I'm not someone who's overly familiar with Mr. Bean, but like
it's so funny.
I am familiar with Mr. Bean because he's Mr. Bean, and like, yeah, he's a weird guy. It makes sense that like, okay, this guy is not of Earth, and I like the whole like he beams down, like that's like a red flag right there that maybe there's something else about Mr. Bean,
right? Yeah.
And also, there's another one that I wanted to talk about. Tom Hardy, the Tom Hardy one. So I have seen bits and pieces of a lot of the Mad Max movies, and I think this one's really good. I like the idea of like, because obviously you're like dealing with different actors, but I like the idea of like Tom Hardy is a kid, and he's like just this weird kid that just is around, doesn't talk very much, and he's like grows up in the shadow of Mad Max. He's like, I like that guy. And he just takes on the title. He takes on his name, and becomes him later. I like that idea.
Yeah, it's like Mad Max is a mantle in this theory,
Right.
and it would also like not only does it make the recast make sense, but it also like the backstory for the Tom Hardy Mad Max. Like you'd see like he'd have like these hallucinations here and there. From what I recall, he would see like a little girl who I guess might be related to him. And from what I remember, I don't think he had like a little girl with him in the original Mad Max. So it would make the backstory possibly make more sense if it's a different Max. So I think that could work. I really like that theory.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, but I might be in the minority, but I do not like the Peter Parker is the kid in Iron Man 2 thing. Like, I know that Tom Holland and Kevin Feige are like, oh yeah, maybe he's that kid, but here's my stance on it. So I feel like that makes the universe smaller, and it also doesn't really matter because they like it's not mentioned ever in Homecoming or Far From Home. So it's like, why bother mentioning that, oh, Peter was that kid, if like it never becomes a huge thing that he brings up to Tony or someone in the movies. And like yeah, like it, and also like if that is Peter Parker in Iron Man 2, then Marvel owes Sony a lot of money because like they needed permission to like use Peter Parker, right?
Right. Like I don't know like how that works. I'm kind of in your camp. I'm like, it doesn't really work. I'm not sure. Like, why wouldn't like you had the whole idea is like, like Tony goes into Peter's bedroom and they have a conversation. Like, wouldn't that be a topic of conversation? Hey, we met that one time. You saved me. Like, wouldn't that be a thing? It's clearly like it's a obvious retcon. It's an obvious like, right. Okay, we just want this to be a thing. I like it as a theory, but I think the decision to confirm it was probably a mistake. I don't really see it happening. Whatever, it's canon. Tom Holland and Kevin Feige say it's the thing. It is a thing. All right.
I can kind of ignore it since it's not mentioned in the movies. So yeah, right. People can pick and choose, I guess.
And who's really rewatching Iron Man 2 these days? All right. Okay, me maybe. But yeah, it's a take it or leave it thing. It's not a big deal.
Right.
But I don't know. It's odd. It's an odd thing. But here, let me see who we got up next.
Yeah, we got Matt Taylor next. So Matt Taylor says in no particular order, Darth Jar Jar. That's a popular one. Ferris Bueller Fight Club theory. That's the one we talked about earlier.
The same one from earlier. Yep.
Yeah. The Rock is secretly a James Bond movie. Now, I think this refers to that 90s movie, The Rock. I don't know if I've ever watched it, but I know
I've never seen it. I've seen videos on it, and apparently it's The Rock. It's not The Rock. It doesn't have The Rock, the actor, in it. It's Sean Connery. I think it's Nick Cage.
Oh yeah, Sean Connery was the first like film James Bond actor. Yeah, so I guess that's why.
And it was after he's obviously older. He's after he did James Bond. He was he refers to him kind of being like being a former some kind of British agent. He's in Alcatraz. I think the last time you see James Bond, Sean Connery's James Bond, it's in San Francisco. Like there's a lot of things that like line up that like, okay, this could work as like a proto James Bond movie like afterwards.
Right. And so continuing, Kevin from Home Alone grows up to be Jigsaw. Now, I have some thoughts about that, but we can come back to that. And then next one is, last one on Matt's list is Nemo doesn't exist. So are you familiar with that Nemo theory?
I read about it today because I hadn't heard about it, and it's crazy.
Yeah, like I didn't know about it until like people sent in like stuff about this, and like I guess the idea is that Nemo like, you know, all those fish eggs, like they all got eaten or whatever at the beginning of that movie. And so Nemo is like a figment of Marlin's imagination and his way of coping with the trauma of what happened. I don't subscribe to this theory because it's really sad, and I prefer for Nemo to be alive.
Dark. Very dark.
But yeah. So do you want me to talk about the Home Alone Jigsaw thing?
Absolutely, because I love this one.
Yeah, in like on paper, it is a hilarious theory to think about because Kevin, of course, sets up like traps around his house to stop the burglars from like succeeding. And of course, Jigsaw, the villain from the Saw film series, he creates all these elaborate traps and tests people who are taking their lives for granted and like testing them to see if they have the will to live and stuff like that. So it's very dark, but it is a funny idea to think about. The only thing I would say is that the timeline doesn't really match up. Like I think Home Alone takes place in the early 90s, and in the Saw universe, Jigsaw starts doing his games in early 2004, just based on like documents and stuff you see in the movies, and like in late
mass murderers start young.
Yeah, and but like in 2004 is when he turns 50 years old. Like he's 52 during Saw 3, which takes place in October 2006, according to like
that's some pretty advanced aging.
Yeah, so like I don't know if there's like some like growth acceleration thing going on or what, but yeah, I don't subscribe to this theory, but it is a funny one, like for the memes, I guess.
Yeah, I love the idea of like Kevin developing into something more psychotic.
Yeah,
after doing all that.
Yeah, I mean the actor who played Kevin, Macaulay Culkin, he's actually on the current season of American Horror Story. So
really, my god, that's amazing. There's a lot. See, there's some more theories right there. It's like, did Kevin grow up and get an American Horror Story? Like, there's a lot of stuff you could do there. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, like I dropped off of the American Horror Story wagon after like season 3, but my friend convinced me to watch this current season, and I've enjoyed what I've watched so far. And it's an anthology show. Like each season is a different story.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, although this current one is like 2 stories in one season. Like it's titled Double Feature, so it's kind of like getting 2 seasons, kind of each in a shorter amount of episodes. But yeah, like the anthology nature of it makes it easy to jump around to just a different season. So yeah.
Right, exactly. So that's interesting. I've heard a lot of good things about that show. Okay, so up next we've got our good friend Michelle, and she says, I don't have a top 5, but I believe this one thing. So she says one thing, and I said, okay, it's fine, because I did ask her to submit one, and it's hard to come up with these things on the fly because I really like did this today. But this is about Avatar: The Last Airbender, not a show that I'm not caught up on. So forgive me for not completely understanding this, but here we go. So the Avatar universe from Avatar: The Last Airbender and Dragon Prince are connected, but they can't legally be because of different production companies. There are already 2 references from Dragon Prince and the Avatar: Last Airbender universe. One, Zuko mentions how a drama team ruined the book adaptation of Love Amongst the Dragons. And in the Dragon Prince, a character, Claudia, is seen reading that book. The second one she points out is the main character, Callum, voiced by Jack DeSena, who also voices Sokka from NTLA. Sokka. See, I'm an idiot. Sees an object while traveling in the desert, and seems to be mesmerize him for a moment, and he recognizes. He says one word without questioning. In recognition, boomerang. So, like I said, I'm not caught up on this show. I know it's amazing, but that's an interesting one.
Yeah, the Dragon Prince on Netflix very much feels like a spiritual successor to the Avatar TV shows. Like he got some of the same people on the team, and like it even divides each season into books, and it has a similar feel, like a similar tone, like it's got that like fun adventure feel, like very cool, very great characters. It's very well written. I think more people should watch it. And like, as much as I love Avatar, The Last Airbender, and Legend of Korra, there was a time when, like, while watching The Dragon Prince season 3, I thought to myself, I think I might prefer this a little bit over those other shows. Don't come after me, angry mob, but yeah, I love the idea of these two being in the same universe. I think that's really cool. It reminds me of the Easter egg in Rick and Morty and Gravity Falls, or like in Gravity Falls, Grunkle Stan's pencil goes through a portal, and in an episode of Rick and Morty, you can see a pencil coming out of a portal, because I guess the creators were friends, so it's kind of like those are in the same multiverse.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That's amazing. Okay, so up next, I believe we have Francisco Matallana.
Yes. So Francisco listed from 1 to 5, but we'll go from 5 to 1 like we always do. So number 5, Tom Bombadil is a blue wizard in Lord of the Rings. I have some thoughts about that, but we'll get back to that. Number 4, Kurt Russell is the Thing at the end of the movie The Thing.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Number 3, Obi-Wan knew about Padme and Anakin, but kept quiet because of Satine. Number 2, The Matrix within the Matrix. And number 1, the Joker is the hero who saves Gotham in The Dark Knight. Wait, what?
That is, I would like to hear further elaboration on that.
What'd you say?
That was me putting on the Batman mask for people listening on audio.
Oh my gosh, yeah. The flashbacks now. Flashbacks. What? I mean, from a certain point of view, yeah, Joker thinks he's saving everyone. But I don't know. I would be curious, like, what's the evidence? What's the whole? What's Joker's play? What is, because the movie version is like, some men just want to watch the world burn. That's the whole idea. But he is a bit deeper than that, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know much about this theory. I'm kind of wondering if it's saying that, like, because of Joker's actions and Batman reacting to it in The Dark Knight, that might have led to, like, the security of Gotham over the next several years between that movie and Dark Knight Rises, maybe. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know that whole theory.
Yeah.
The Matrix within the Matrix, I'm not really sure what that refers to.
I think the general idea is, like, you have the Matrix,
right?
And then obviously, like, okay, it's like, oh, big reveal, it's all the Matrix, it's all fake, and here's the real world.
Oh yeah, like the world is also in a Matrix, right?
Yeah, and so one comment that I saw was basically like, they created the Matrix within the Matrix so that it would stop people from looking for the real world, because they figured it out. Because you basically have people living in a Matrix going, well, I figured it out, I'm the smart one. They don't go looking for, oh, by the way, you're still in the Matrix.
Huh. Oh, maybe Matrix Resurrections will touch upon that somehow.
There's some theories about that too. There's theories I heard on the Weekly Planet podcast. They were talking about how, like, maybe the Matrix is a movie within the Matrix universe.
Oh my gosh. Then we'll have another new nightmare situation.
Yeah. Because, like, think about it, though. It's like, if it's the Matrix is in a movie, like, if you're trying to say, hey, we're living in a Matrix, we're living in a fabricated reality. Oh, you mean like that movie, The Matrix? Like, no one would believe you. Like, so it's kind of brilliant.
Right. And for this Obi-Wan knowing about Padme and Anakin thing, so we know that he knew because of Clone Wars Season 7, and, like, even in Legends, I read this comic miniseries called Star Wars Obsession, where he was looking for Anakin, and he knew to find him on Naboo, and he's like, I don't really care what you two are up to. So I guess, like, even in Legends he knew. But I think the main thing about this theory is that he kept quiet because of the relationship that he would have liked to have had with Satine. At least that's what it sounds like to me.
I think it's definitely like Clone Wars season 7 definitely confirmed that like he knew, and I think there was always like bits and pieces there you could pick up on that he knew all along. I'm not sure if it's because of Satine, because I mean Satine is gone at that point, and like I don't know, like would he, for example, be expelled from the Jedi Order because he thought about leaving the Jedi Order? Like, I don't know. I think it was more out of respect for Anakin and Padme because they were his friends and, you know, he liked them and didn't want them to see any trouble. So, but, you know, who knows? I like the idea of like putting Obi-Wan having a different perspective on that and not just like, you know, him, because of his relationship with Satine, was able to relate more to Anakin and Padme versus just like being, oh, it's by the book and you have to do this and Jedi code this and that. He was better than that.
Yeah. And have you ever watched The Thing or some of them?
I've seen a lot of clips, enough clips to know I probably don't want to watch The Thing.
It's a great film. It's really great.
I'm sure it is. I've seen the clip where the guy's like trying to put paddles on a guy on a gurney, and then he goes through the guy, and the guy gets his arms chopped off by the thing, and I'm like, ew, oh no. So maybe one day, I don't know.
Right, but yeah, it's a pretty ambiguous ending. So it's like there are two people who may or may not be the Thing. Like it could go either way. So yeah, I guess maybe there's like some written up thing out there that says why it's Kurt Russell. I haven't read it, but yeah, I mean, could be possible. Now this Lord of the Rings one, like I know it's a really popular one because I guess I should ask, how familiar are you with Tom Bombadil? Like, have you heard of him and like his role in the books?
This is literally the first time I've heard that name.
Okay, so
I've seen all the movies. I still don't know.
Yeah, he's not in the movies. So,
really? Okay.
Yeah, so in the Fellowship of the Ring, in the book version, the hobbits come across him when they're like trying to get out of the Shire, and they go through the old forest, and they have help getting out of these trees thanks to Tom Bombadil, and they go over to his home, and weirdly he's been around since like the beginning of the first age of Middle-earth, and when he puts on the One Ring, like he takes it from Frodo and puts it on his finger, but it doesn't turn him invisible for some reason. And he also finds the hobbits again after they encounter some Barrow Wights on their way out of the Shire. And so he's kind of just there. Like I think Tolkien originally made him up for a poem, and he's based on a doll that I think maybe his kid had or something. Or
okay.
But yeah, like it's kind of weird. Like he gets mentioned again during the Council of Elrond. They're like, oh, that's kind of strange, and they're wondering if maybe they should like talk to him. And then like at the end of the Return of the King, when they're on their way back to the Shire, Gandalf says he would like to speak to Tom Bombadil and learn more about like his place and all this. But when they get to where he lives, like they don't see him there. Like he's gone for some reason. But yeah, he's kind of like that weird mystery that like it never gets resolved. And like I don't know if Tolkien really cared about like who to explain like who he was, what his deal was, but because he wears blue, there's this popular theory that he's one of the, I think there are like 2 blue wizards that originally came with like Gandalf and the others to Middle-earth. But I think there's like something about how it like doesn't work, like the timeline doesn't match up. Like I think I read somewhere that like the blue wizards didn't arrive in Middle-earth at the beginning of the First Age. Like they were elsewhere during that time. And so I think there's some stuff against this and some of the text material. I just don't have it handy. But yeah, that's like a really popular one to explain pretty much just a random character who appears in the books.
Wow, I maybe I've heard of the name, maybe because I am, I'm fairly familiar with the all the Tolkien lore. Very very fascinating stuff. I love that whole universe is amazing. And it's amazing to hear I mean the movies are so dense, and then you bring in the books and all this kind of stuff. It just piles on. The
Yeah.
fact that the movies are so long, if there's still stuff that they cut out, is kind of boggles my mind, kind of. But that's amazing. Thank you for explaining that, because I was very curious about that. Okay, we have one more. We have a couple more. We have Dylan Carlson on Facebook, who simply says, "Omega is Ray's mom." I don't think Jodie Comer looks like a female clone of Tim Morrison. I don't really see that. I mean, I like the idea. Right. It would be weird that Ray's parents were both clones, or both.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Because what is it? I think the canon confirmation was that the whatever his name is, the son of Palpatine, is not actually a son. He is a failed clone of Sheev.
Yeah, so the new Robot Chicken sketch even mentions that.
Oh my god, I saw that. They got the whole gang back for more, and they're parodying Rise of Skywalker. I cannot wait to see that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't want to say anything, Dylan, but I don't think that works. But
yeah, I mean, let's face it, Omega should have looked more like Django in the show. It really boggles my mind that in the lead up to the show, because of how she looks, there were all these theories that she's a Palpatine clone. And if that was going on, then something was wrong with the way they were animating her.
Yeah, I've heard that they're fixing that. Hopefully, because there's an awful lot of pale characters that probably aren't supposed to be pale. So it's a little weird. Hopefully they'll tweak it a little bit and make it look better for season 2. But yeah, that's the whole thing. Oh, okay, really quick. Not really quick actually, because Din from F105 sent us a kind of a long one, and I'll run through this really quick because this is a lot, and then you can finish up with Jake's when we get to Jake's. So Din says, "I don't know if this is a fan theory, but my gut feeling still stands that for Feige to do a Star Wars movie, he would need something big, and that big thing is a Luke movie between the Mando season 2 finale and The Force Awakens. They're simply waiting for the tech to be ready to combine a Sebastian Stan performance, enhanced, not replaced, by an AI Luke face and voice." Okay, wow. That's a lot. Okay, Din. I like where you're going with this, though. My other main fan theory appears to have been true. Since 2005, I have said that Lucas had Padme tell Obi-Wan they're still good in Anakin to set up a future Kenobi movie where, realizing Anakin isn't dead, goes on a quest to see if there is good in him, Padme's words ringing in his ears and soul. This is confirmed by what Lucas had Vader tell Luke in Return of the Jedi. When Luke says there is still good in him, he responds, "Obi-Wan once thought as you do." Lucas sets up that we hadn't seen that yet and suggested at the moment in Revenge of the Sith that we will. We have never seen Obi-Wan think there is still good in Anakin. In Revenge of the Sith, he was convinced that he is completely gone by Yoda. I hear a Kenobi film was one of the ideas Lucas sold to Disney, and it's pretty clear that it has been setting up one since at least 2005. That's a lot to unpack. But
yeah, I've thoughts on both of these things. Yeah. So do you want to go over the Obi-Wan thing first, or
that's whichever one you want?
Okay, so for the Obi-Wan thing, I don't want to be sour on people, but I feel like sometimes we give George Lucas a bit too much credit for what he may or may not have planned.
You're not wrong, all right? You're not wrong.
I honestly think when he was making Revenge of the Sith, there were some things he didn't quite take into account that, I need to have this happen to make sense. okay, he did get C-3PO's memory wiped, sure, but there's like, it just felt like there was a lot happening in that movie to the point where some of it feels kind of rushed. And it was basically him cramming lots of his ideas so that he can get to his thesis statement at the end, which is how Anakin tragically turns to the dark side. And like, I don't think he was necessarily setting up an Obi-Wan movie. I think he might have like not realized that he was kind of retconning what Vader had said in Return of the Jedi. Or maybe there's a different interpretation, like a different way to read what Vader said. But I think maybe it was you, Ben, you may have talked about how the Obi-Wan show could potentially like sort of make this a bit cleaner and sort of explain some of these discrepancies, like even if it wasn't Lucas's idea to have that happen.
Yeah, my whole deal with that is like my first thought of like, oh, Obi-Wan and Vader are gonna meet again in the Kenobi series. I'm like, whoa, okay, that's weird. But on second thought, I'm like, it could work because we've grown to live with it. But Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, they do not mesh very well. They just don't. All right. As movies, as the story does not mesh that well. It's a very there's a lot of things that don't match up. And I love both movies.
Your father wanted you to have this lightsaber.
Exactly. And there's so much open to interpretation. And you know, it's like I'm not complaining. All right. The Revenge of the Sith is 15 years old and A New Hope's over 40 years old. Like it's all in the past.
Right.
I don't think they could screw it up any more than it already is. I think they have an opportunity, and maybe Din's onto something here. I'm not going to discount the idea that maybe George was sitting on this himself and going like, man, I screwed up. I didn't make it quite the way I wanted to. I was just focused on like making this giant battle over a volcano, and I didn't really think about the whole specifics of like what needed to happen. Right. Doing a rematch, and there's a lot of time there, it could work. And I think maybe we might find that out. I think if it's an idea from George Lucas, I have a feeling that would be something that like Disney and Lucasfilm would like want us to know. They'd be like, okay, this is something that came from George, because you guys, even though you hated George like 10 years ago, you love him now. So you're going to love this if we tell you that it's from George Lucas. So yeah, I like where Disney was going with this. I agree with you. We give George a little too much credit sometimes, but I think there's something here. There's something that could be really special here that could have been in the making for a while.
Yeah, maybe. Like, I guess it'll depend on like if we get an interview that comes out, maybe it could shed some light on some of this.
It's true.
Yeah. Okay, so for the Feige thing, so I've always had mixed feelings about how Luke's face looks at the end of Mando season 2.
Same.
Like, I would have been okay if they had just used Max Lloyd Jones' his own face. Like, he looks like he could look like Luke Skywalker. Like, Same. He doesn't have to look exactly like Mark Hamill, but he could look like Luke just as himself. So whether it be him or Sebastian Stan, I'd be fine with either of them playing a live action Luke. But I'd also be really fine with Feige doing a Star Wars movie that's more new characters. Like, I loved Mando season 1 because it focused more on the new characters. So I don't know, maybe it could happen, or maybe it's something else. But hey, Feige has a good track record, so maybe there's something to this.
It's possible. I'm very interested to see what Feige does. Like, I just like what him being all about Marvel, that's his one thing, but like he's gonna do a Star Wars movie, like what's that about? I want to know what he has in mind, and you know, and who's gonna direct it, who's gonna write it, all this kind of stuff. Him being, what his role is he gonna have in it? Very like, that's the most like out there, like intriguing idea that they've put forward with these new slate of Star Wars films. Is like, okay, what could this be? Like, I can kind of expect what Taika Waititi's going to do, because he's going to do a Taika Waititi thing, because he's Taika Waititi. But like Feige, bit of a wild card there. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, this is kind of a tangent, but with Taika Waititi, like Thor Ragnarok has a lot of funny stuff. There's some mood whiplash here and there. I love what he did with IG-11 and Mandalorian. But after watching his other films recently, like his non-franchise films, I'd honestly be more excited to hear what more he does outside of these franchises than within them. Now, obviously, I'm gonna watch Taika's movie, and because it's Star Wars, and if it's in the far-flung past, then that could be more interesting. But that's basically my whole take on Taika Waititi in general. Like, I love his stuff outside of franchises like a lot. So, yeah, like I'm looking forward to seeing what more he does with that type of stuff.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to all these, but yeah, the Taika is going to be again another wild card that we don't know what could possibly happen. Okay, I think the last one we have, maybe for now, we might try to squeeze a few more in towards the end of the show, but for right now, the last one we've got is our good buddy Jake Damon. He said one just a little bit ago, and we cannot ignore him. Steven, tell him what he says.
Right. So Jake says he says in no particular order, but he still numbers them.
All right. I think I have a theory. I have a theory of my own. I think Jake is trolling me. All right, because he says
he'd be the one to do that.
Order, and then he puts numbers on them. Jake, do you know what you're doing? All right, Jake, you're playing with me. You're playing with my emotions. How dare you? Keep going with the list. I'll just sit back and listen.
Okay, so I'll start with the 5. Number 5, Ferris Bueller is a made-up character by Cameron. Yeah, we've heard of that one earlier before as well. Lots of people love that one. Number 4, the Joker in The Dark Knight is an Iraq war veteran suffering from PTSD. Yeah, we heard that from Dan Grievous as well. So, yeah, it's another popular one. Number 3, all the Pixar films take place in the same universe.
Pixar Theory.
Yeah, going back to the Pixar Theory. Number 2, that 007 is actually a Time Lord, which would explain his many faces.
I like that.
Yeah, no. Okay, so I'll just talk about that one real quick. So that's one I actually considered putting on my top 5. I love it because it explains the different faces. And like, obviously, when you watch all the films, it's like you have Sean Connery for a few movies, and then this other guy named George A. Lazenby, but then it's Sean Connery again in the next movie. And like, if it was just a code name, like if 007 or James Bond was just a code name, that wouldn't really, maybe it wouldn't make as much sense. But if there's time travel involved and he's a Time Lord, then hey, like anything is possible. And one of the James Bond actors, Timothy Dalton, he actually played Rassilon, a very prominent Time Lord in Doctor Who. So maybe James Bond is Rassilon, possibly. I don't know, but
that's an interesting theory. Yeah, because like you could like go like
theory.
Yeah, like at least Doctor Who like went to the thing of like, okay, our character has different faces every once in a while. We're gonna explain that. 007, that we never get the explanation, but maybe there is an explanation.
Yeah. So that I love that one. Number 1 is kind of similar. Mary Poppins is a time lady explaining her use of her handbag that appears to be bigger on the inside.
I freaking love this.
Yeah, and hey, maybe that would also explain the actress change with Mary Poppins Returns, which I still need to watch even after all these years.
She regenerated, but she didn't because isn't Mary Poppins Returns is like the kids are like grown up, I think that's the plot of that movie.
I don't know.
I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it's in the future, but like, of course, she hasn't changed. She's supposed to be, young. So like that also adds, like, she just regenerated and she's got a bag that's bigger on the inside. Maybe that's her TARDIS. She just carries it around instead of flying, and she can just fly too. I love that theory. That's probably one of my favorites out of all the ones that we just read off. Really good stuff.
Yeah, so great list, Jake.
Great list, everyone. But okay, so we have but one more list, and it's from our good buddy, Mr. Zach Arnold. He sent in his own list. He couldn't be here tonight, but he decided to bring one himself. And on his number 5, he says, the Pixar Theory. All films are actually in one universe. And that's a very popular one. Never heard of that one before. That's one that me and him have talked about at length before. Number 4, Nemo is a placebo to help Marlin cope with his wife's death and isn't actually alive. And Zach explains, in Latin, Nemo translates to no one. This helps spur the theory that Marlin's son doesn't actually exist in Finding Nemo, but is just an invention he uses in order to come to terms with the death of his wife. We see Marlin go through the 5 stages of grief in the film. First, denial, when he invents Nemo's eggs after the rest of his family is killed. Second, anger, as he freaks out whenever Nemo is too far away from him. Third, bargaining, as he convinces Dory to join his quest and then puts her up with her. Fourth, despair, when he sees Nemo flush down the toilet. And finally, acceptance, as he's able to let Nemo go off on his own in the end. That's a wild one. And of the return of the Tarzan, for number 3, Tarzan and Frozen characters are Anna and Elsa are related. So this is about, I think this is the whole theory about... Yeah.
Like Tarzan is a sibling of theirs.
It's like the long lost sibling, and then their parents got killed, and then Tarzan ended up on the island or whatever.
Yeah, in Africa,
Yeah, I like that. And then number 2, Indiana Jones is pointless to the plot of the events of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Everything would have played out exactly the same. Zach, we've been over this. We've talked about this in the Raiders episode. I think this is a dumb theory. I could say that because this is Zach. I mean, without its valor, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, even if things would have happened the same, I think the important thing to take away is how the events change Indy. Like, sure, the events would have happened the same even if he wasn't involved, but because of his involvement, he, like, you see how his relationship with Marion changes, and of course, I guess that leads to a Shia LaBeouf being born eventually. But anyway, So I think there's more to watching Raiders and thinking, oh, Indy could have just been left out, and it would have been the same. Like, it's still fun to see him in the adventure. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. And then number 1, obviously, has to be a Friends reference. It has to be a Friends theory. Number 1, Rachel from Friends slept with Ben Wyatt from Parks and Rec, and on the first date, no less. So I actually read up on this a little bit. Apparently, Rachel mentions going out with a guy named Ben Wyatt, and of course, this is before Parks and Rec, but Parks and Rec and Friends were on the same network. So, and the timeline kind of matches up. So they're thinking Ben Wyatt, but also Ben Wyatt, as someone named Ben, I think it's safe to say that, like, Ben Wyatt sounds like a name you could easily make up if you're a writer. Like, so, and or maybe, I don't know, maybe the Parks and Rec people like took it from them. I don't know.
Ben Wyatt, the Star Wars guy. He actually is a Star Wars fan.
yeah, I know. Oh gosh, yeah, that's I don't know. I haven't watched Friends, but I wish
Zach is like shaking his head at you.
I know. We've lost him. He's turned off his iPod or whatever. But one day, Zach, I will. But I wish Zach was here to actually like fully explain this and why this is a brilliant idea. But he's not. We'll get his opinion later.
Yeah, like I read the link he provided us with too, and yeah, like there's that mention of one of her old boyfriends being named Ben Wyatt, but the link that he sent us also mentioned that a wrinkle in this theory is that Friends is mentioned as a TV show within Parks and Rec, and
wow,
yeah, and I looked this up, and there's even an episode of Parks and Rec where there's a telethon, and Leslie Knope, Amy Poehler's character, is like saying, my second favorite episode of Friends is the Thanksgiving one where Chandler is in a box and, she's mentioning the characters and stuff. So yeah, it's kind of a wrinkle in the theory. Seems like Parks and Rec is the real world and Friends is a fictional world. But yeah, I mean, it's still funny that like the names are in both shows, at least.
Oh wow, yeah, that's funny. There's been some great lists tonight. Everyone has produced some really great ones, stuff that I've never heard of, stuff that of course I've heard for years. But now it is time for yours and mine list. I can't talk. All right, it's getting late, guys. It's later than I want it to be because I could literally do this all night. This has been a blast. But I have my list. Like I was telling you before we got on the show, I uncharacteristically had my list ready to go before we started. That never happens. How does that happen? Like, this is like one of the hardest ones, and somehow I was prepared for it. I hope you're prepared for this. Be
prepared.
Yes. Okay, so if you have any honorable mentions, feel free to mention them here, and also you can go ahead and dive into your number 5 if you'd like.
All right, yeah. So this was like really tough narrowing it down to my top 5. Like I jotted down a lot of stuff. But like I think I'll just have like I can mention 2 honorable mentions right now. So one of them is the Rey Nobody theory. Like I know that got debunked, but it was an idea that I really loved. Like between Force Awakens and Last Jedi, I got really tired of hearing like the Rey Kenobi and Rey Tarkin theories and all that stuff. And I was just like, I just want Rey to be anyone, like, and it would show that a hero could come from anywhere. Like they don't have to be related to anyone important. And I thought that Last Jedi confirmed that. And then Rise of Skywalker like undid that. So
right.
Yeah. Like the only thing that happened that went along with what I was hoping would happen was that she got adopted into the Skywalker family. So that final scene in episode 9, I feel is perfect. It's just the stuff that like led up to it like wasn't how I thought it would go.
That was basically my thoughts on Rise of Skywalker. It's like the ending is perfect because everything that led up to it was like, okay, I don't know how I feel about this. But I guess it ended the way I wanted to, so I really shouldn't be complaining.
Yeah, and the other honorable mention, this is actually a Doctor Who theory that I heard from my friend Keon, who's on the Trust Your Doctor podcast. So this relates to like the final Peter Capaldi story from a few years ago. It was a Christmas special, and like he meets he and the first Doctor go on an adventure. And so my friend Keon's theory was that when like they're both at points in their lives where they're about to regenerate, like one is about to regenerate into 2, like Patrick Troughton's Doctor, and 12 is about to regenerate into 13, which is Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. And so Keon's theory was that when they shook hands, they swapped regeneration energy, and that he thinks that, well, at the time he was thinking that maybe originally William Hartnell, the first Doctor, was about to regenerate into Jodie Whittaker, and Capaldi was about to regenerate into Patrick Troughton. And so when they like when they shake hands, they swap the incarnations they're about to regenerate into, and that's why you have like all these years without a female Doctor or whatever.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
like I don't think that was the intention, but it's a fun theory to think about, and I really like it.
Wow. That's okay. Yeah. Doctor Who is convoluted enough. That's adding another wrinkle to it.
Yeah, I'm sure it was hard to follow for some people who haven't like kept up with it, but yes.
That's amazing.
Or even people who have kept up with it. I don't know. Who am I to say?
Yeah, me.
All right. So
I think you're number 5.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you were gonna say your honorable mentions first, or
I'll go ahead and say mine really quick, I guess.
Okay.
I only have one. And it's been talked about a lot, so I really don't have much to say about it. The Pixar Theory. I really do. I love that one. I love the Pixar movies. I'm still not caught up on all the Pixar movies. We're gonna have to work on that on this show one of these days. But yeah, it's just like I love it when people will try like, oh yeah, all of what is it? Quentin Tarantino's movies, all of his are like in one universe or whatever else. Like they'll try to do things like that. I'm like, I know that's not the intention, but I love just like trying to make it work.
with Tarantino, I think it is the intention. I think he may have talked about it at some point.
That sounds like Tarantino, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that makes sense. That might actually be true. He may have confirmed that.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, that's all I have for that one. For honorable mentions, because I was the only one that didn't make the cut for me. But for you, what is your number 5?
All right, so my number 5 is another Pixar related one, funny enough. So this is the theory that Woody used to be Andy's dad's toy. And yeah, and now I know that there's one that was like circulating a few years ago where someone was like, oh, I heard this from someone who worked on Toy Story that passed away, that Andy's dad had polio as a kid, and so he
my goodness.
Yeah, it was really weird. It was like, oh, so he only had toys to play with, and as he became an adult, like before he passed away, he gave it to Andy. And like I think one of the people working on the Toy Story movies then came out and said fake news or something like that discounted that whole thing. Like I don't think the like disease part is necessary. Like it could be like maybe Andy's parents had a divorce or something. Like maybe that's what's going on like early in Andy's life. But in any case, I really like the idea of Woody being Andy's dad's toy. And like on one hand, it explains his attachment to Woody, but on the other hand, I can totally understand like how it might be more significant if he's not his dad's toy and he just loves Woody for Woody. Like, you know, in Toy Story 3, he's picking between Woody and Buzz, and he puts Buzz up in the attic and wants to bring Woody with him.
Right.
So like it could go either way, I guess, but I think it's like a really nice, cute idea that Woody is Andy's dad's toy.
Well, in Toy Story 2, Al is trying to buy Woody, and she says, "Oh, it's an old family toy." It's not like, "Oh, it's my son's." It's, "Oh, an old family toy." Like this has been in my family for generations. Maybe, you know, it was my husband's, and it got passed down to my son. Like there's stuff there. I think this has legs. I like this.
Yeah, I mean, Woody's a really old toy. Like he was popular in the late 50s. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There is that, like, you don't know quite when like Toy Story is set, but like you can tell like there's another era.
Like the 90s for the first couple movies.
90s, and then like there's the 50s. So like Woody's like goes like way back, and obviously all the other toys are like collector's items, and you know, usually modern toys aren't collector's items. They aren't that valuable to be put in a museum. So that's a lot. That's thing, and you know, there's okay. I like this a lot. All right, you're making me think. I need to move on to my number 5.
What's your number 5?
What my number 5 is something completely different. Something that is actually based on something recent. Something that I had not heard until like yesterday when I was researching this. So my number 5 is that in the MCU, John Walker is one of the failed spawn of Ego, the living planet. So where this comes from is the fact that obviously in the real world, what's his name? Why am I blanking on the names of these characters and also the names of the freaking actors? This Wyatt Russell, who plays John Walker, is the son of Kurt Russell, who plays Ego.
I did not know this before.
Really?
Right,
you didn't know this?
I didn't know. I didn't know the name of the actor who played John Walker.
My gosh. Okay.
And I've never heard this theory at all. But
so for those, maybe you're not the only person to know. Okay, so John Walker, played by Wyatt Russell, famously or maybe not so famously because you didn't know, he is the son of Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell. And so if you look at, like, I didn't really know that either until I heard when Falcon Winter Soldier was coming out. And then when you look at it and you look at White Russell, you're like, oh wow, he does look like Kurt Russell a lot. Like he's like almost a spitting image of his father. So this is kind of retconning that into the universe of like, okay, why does Ego and this guy look so much alike? And we know that Ego went through, all kinds of people and did a lot of bad things and got it on with a bunch of women throughout the galaxy, and maybe did it with more than one Earth woman and had thing. But like, I think in Guardians Volume 2, I think they say that like there's a whole like cave of bones, and they're like that fact that like he killed any of the kids that maybe didn't work out.
Oh wow.
So maybe this is like, unlike most theories, this is less dark than the actual answer in the movies. But I still love the idea of like maybe that's why he's such an asshole. Because his dad was an asshole. He was from space. Yeah. John Walker. And like you would think, oh well, maybe he has celestial blood, but like he's a normal guy. Like his whole point of his character is that he's he's a normal guy with just not very good reflexes. So who knows?
Kind of like Palpatine's clone son in a way.
Right. He just came out normal, which is why he's failed, I guess.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's my number 5.
Yeah, that's a wild one. Wow.
Right out of the gate with a wild one. Why not?
Yeah.
Okay, so going on to your number 4 then.
All right, so my number 4 is actually a theory that I thought of on my own.
Really?
Yeah, like several years ago. I think it got debunked by the comics, but okay, so this is a Back to the Future theory. So years ago, my theory was that, when they go to 2015, it's all futuristic. There are flying cars. So my theory was that at the end of Back to the Future 3, Marty avoids the car accident. And from that point onward, the future is different, right? And so what I was thinking is maybe the car accident in that earlier timeline could have been what inspired people to make scientific advancements even quicker, like make flying cars, safer cars, that type of stuff. And so, yeah, that was like my theory at the time. But then like I got into the Back to the Future comics, and like they're set after part 3 and Marty goes to the future and it's still futuristic. So I guess it kind of debunks it. But at the same time, one of the creators of Back to the Future, one of the Bobs, said it has time travel. So everything is canon and nothing is canon. So I don't know, maybe.
Because like they establish in the movies that like you can go back in time and change something and then the future is going to be different. Like that's the whole shtick of that universe. So like he's right. Like anything is possible. It's like the multiverse.
Yeah. So that would basically explain why our 2015 was just normal.
Normal. Because like it just, they kept screwing around because there was still like, they destroyed the original DeLorean, but then they had the train DeLorean or train time machine. Yeah. So they just kept going on. And there, who knows, there might have been multiple versions, like Rick and Morty could just be, multiple versions of those characters just running around, running amok in the universe. Yeah. I like that a lot.
Yeah, there's a really fun Telltale video game of Back to the Future set after 3. It really feels like a sequel movie or miniseries type of thing. It's really well made. Like I recommend everyone play it if they're able to.
That's cool.
But yeah, I love that series, and like that's a theory that I had one time.
That's cool. Oh man, that's really cool. I love Back to the Future. So I love some. We haven't had any Back to the Future theories tonight, I don't think. Okay, so on to my number 4, and it's a Star Wars theory. It's actually not the only Star Wars theory. I'm gonna take that back. It is the second Star Wars theory on my list, and it's the theory. It's been around for a long time. It's the thing that Admiral Kendall Ozzel from The Empire Strikes Back is a rebel spy within the Empire. So basically, he's not as clumsy as he is stupid. He's not an idiot. He knows what he's doing. He intentionally dropped out of hyperspace too close to Hoth to alert the rebels because he was working for him the entire time. I actually like this quite a lot. I like the idea of, maybe it's, maybe because we've since then we've got, Hux, who I don't care if you win. I just want, like, what is his motivation? Like, who knows? We know tons of Imperials throughout the ages, Callus on down, even Han Solo, like, defected from the Empire. We know it's possible.
Yeah.
So what if you have a high up admiral, one of the highest people in the Empire, possibly being sympathetic to the rebellion, maybe working for him? Who knows?
Yeah, I think I've heard this theory before. It's a really interesting one. Did Ozzel got a story in those from a certain point of view books? Did he? If so, I can't remember what happens.
I don't remember what happened either. I don't think it confirmed this theory. Otherwise, we probably have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I feel like we would have remembered if
right. That would have been like huge news that, like, they confirmed this theory, but that would have been crazy. I think you probably I can't remember what it is. The from a certain point of view, books they're good and sometimes they're not. Some of the stories are really great, some of them are not. I don't remember.
Yeah,
I can't remember the Ozzel story, so maybe it wasn't that great.
Yeah, like the really good ones outweigh the meh or not so memorable ones for me. Like
none of them last very long. You can get through them pretty quickly if you don't like them. Because there's some stinkers in there. There's some ones that are like, who wrote this?
Yeah, there's a one where it's all from a mouse droid's point of view, and if you're listening to the audio version, it's so repetitive and annoying.
I thought that was going to drive me insane. I do the audiobooks, and that was yeah. No, thank you. But that's my number 4. Ozzel is secret rebel.
Nice. All right. So my number 4. I'm on my number 3 now because yes, yeah, I did. I'm on number 4, and you did too. I think we're on number 3s now. Yeah, because Back to the Future was 4 and Toy Story was 5. Yeah. Okay. So my number 3 then is Doctor Who related. Yeah, and this actually goes like way back. So when I got into Doctor Who back in 2013, I started from the very beginning, from like the first Doctor onward, watching all the classic stuff, working my way to the newer stuff. And one of the weird things that I noticed was in this 4th Doctor story called The Brain of Morbius, there's a moment where he and this evil, I guess, former Time Lord, who's basically like Frankenstein's monster now, or brain in a jar type of thing. Like, they have like a battle of the minds. And so you get to see inside of the Doctor's mind. Like on a screen, it shows images of the previous Doctors, like 3rd, 2nd, and 1st. And then Morbius says, "How long have you lived, Doctor?" And it shows 8 more faces before, like after it shows like the first 3 Doctors. And so those are people who, like, I guess, worked behind the scenes of Doctor Who. And when I watched that episode, like I thought to myself, I guess the original intention was that the 4th Doctor was actually the 12th incarnation of the Doctor, because this was close to the time where where the incarnation after Tom Baker would be the final incarnation, if they're going with like the regeneration limit of like 12 regenerations, therefore 13 incarnations. So like, and like that was their intention at the time they made this, was that those were pre-William Hartnell Doctors. But when they got around to the 5th Doctor's era, there's this serial called Modern Undead where it actually retcons that, and like he says he's the 5th like incarnation. So pretty much ignores like those other 8 faces, I guess, so that they can have more doctors after him and not worry. So my theory to like still make that work was that, you know, the doctor never says their name, and so maybe there's like, and like Stephen Moffat even like said maybe he has like a nasty secret or something. And so my idea was that maybe the doctor was more of a villain before going on his adventures, like as the first doctor. And if he was more like his evil rival, the master, maybe he was a type of person who would worry about his mortality and even steal other people's bodies. Like maybe he had those 8 previous incarnations as a different body and then like hijacked someone else's body and like started the regeneration cycle over from there. So yeah, that was basically the Too Long Didn't Read version, is that the doctor was evil and then stole someone else's body and the regeneration cycle reset.
Interesting.
And so recent on-screen Doctor Who stuff confirmed part of that, but debunked part of that as well. So I won't get too specific about it, but I do like that the recent stuff kind of confirmed a bit of that.
That's cool. That's cool. I love all the lore of Doctor Who. I remember getting into it when I was watching the show way back in the day, and yeah, it's funny. And now they've like, is that there was the rule about there can only be 12 regenerations. Yeah. But now we're on 13 with Jodie Whittaker.
Yeah, so. There was also the War Doctor and others.
Right. Yeah. And then there was another doctor. There was another female doctor that showed up during Jodie Whittaker's thing. Yeah. And then she's leaving. So there's, obviously going to be another regeneration. So, I mean, it's not like the show is ever going to end. So come on. But I love that. I love that whole idea. All right. So I guess it's on to my number 3. I'm going to look at my notes. So this is one that's actually, myself and Dan Grievous were of the same mind. I did not take this from you, Dan. All right. I did not. All right. I thought this up on my own. And it's the theory about Owen Grady, Chris Pratt from Jurassic World, being the kid from the first Jurassic Park movie. Nice. And I won't spend too much time on this because we've already talked about it, but like basically, just the whole idea of like Alan Grant threatening this kid and this kid's being like, oh, dinosaurs, whatever. It's like a big chicken or whatever. Like he's just a little asshole. And then, it would be funny to like Alan Grant scared this kid straight. He ends up becoming a, and where would that kid be now? Like if it's not Chris Pratt, where is that kid now that the dinosaurs have taken over the world? And what's his thoughts now? So I love that theory. It's been floating
probably working out Baskin Robbins.
Baskin Robbins always finds out.
Yeah.
I love that little theory. So yeah, that's my number 3. Yeah.
All right, nice. Now my number 2 is actually something I heard from Jesse, whom we've mentioned previously. He's from the Question Possible Answer podcast. So on my Facebook, sometimes I post random things. Last week I was posting a lot of Blue's Clues stuff.
As you do.
And yeah. And I got to talking about the like Steve and Joe thing. Like as a kid, I didn't mind like Steve being replaced with Joe. Like I like that they didn't just have Donovan Patton play Steve and just be like, oh, Steve looks kind of different. Like they didn't talk down to the audience. They handled the transition really well. But the idea is that that Steve went to college because his younger brother Joe also went to college and graduated, and he figured, hey, if my little brother Joe can do that, like maybe I can do that too. So like, Steve didn't go to college right after high school because like that was something I wondered about as a kid, but as an adult I'm like, okay, like not everyone goes to college right away. Like everyone goes at different speeds, and like knowing like the different speeds of people within my family when it comes to college, it's like Yeah, like I really like that theory that he was inspired by his younger brother. It's really cute. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I love, again, Blue's Clues. There's not enough Blue's Clues fan theories. And you could also, I appreciate you can go like really dark with that. You could go some really dark places, turning a kid show into something like really that it's not.
Yeah.
But Blue's Clues is all the rage now. Like all of us that grew up with it, like it's a big deal now. And then Steve's coming back and going like, "I'm proud of you." I'm like, "I love you, Steve. I missed you, Steve." Yeah, it's a lot. That's a great idea. I love that. I love that you're like bringing up your own theories. You're like being like you're going extra creative here with your own theories that you've come up with, which I appreciate.
Yeah, and that one was Jesse's theory. So thanks for that food for thought, Jesse. I really like that one.
Awesome. Okay. So I don't think any of the ones that I have on my list are ones that I made up, or most of them are popular that I came up. This one was extremely popular a few years ago. This is my number 2. Actually,
you said number 2.
It's a sad thing that Zach is not here to witness this. The fact that I put this theory at number 2 on my list.
Oh wow!
Somewhere Zach is laughing his ass off. So my number 2 is the quote unquote Thanos theory.
Oh, I know what this is.
You know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
So it is the theory that I think this wasn't leading up to either Infinity War or Endgame.
Yeah.
Ant-Man was going to show up just in the nick of time, and he was going to get real small, and he was going to go up Thanos' butt, and he was going to enlarge himself, and he was going to explode Thanos from the inside out, and that's how they were going to win. And we were all disappointed when it seemingly got debunked. It didn't happen. That never really happened.
Yeah, this is perfect as your number 2.
It really is. I swear I didn't do that on purpose, but here we are. But the way I bring this up and what kind of brought it up thing is people were talking about the fact that in What If, the most recent What If, not the most recent one, the second to most recent one,
last week,
the zombie one, which I really, really liked. It's probably my favorite of the episodes. We have a thing. It's a little different, but kind of the same. It's Hope Van Dyne goes inside Sharon Carter, goes into her mouth, and then explodes out. And he's like, "I got Sharon all over me." And people were like, "Wait a minute. They did it. They finally did it. They did the Thanos one. It just was not quite the same, but kind of confirmed that theory from way back in the day that never really happened. So it felt like it just so many memes stuff like that. It was just great.
Yeah, that was a funny one that like went around, and then people got really annoyed with it really fast. But yeah, okay, so I guess I'm on my number 1 now.
We're down to the number 1s. I can't believe it.
Yeah. Okay. So this one pertains to something that you and I, like a show that you and I have talked about that we both love. And we even did an episode on, of course, the classic sitcom Seinfeld.
Oh, yes. Seinfeld theory. Yes.
Yeah. And this comes from a meme that I saw in like a Seinfeld meme group called Seinfeld Soup Posting. And it's, like basically the idea is that Newman's first name is Jerry, and so when Jerry Seinfeld moved into the apartment, like they were in the elevator together, and he was like, "Hey, I like to be referred to as Jerry, so could you have people referred to you as your last name, like Seinfeld?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure, I don't care." And then Kramer comes in and refers to Jerry Seinfeld as Jerry and Jerry Newman as Newman, and then that's when Newman gets enraged and is like, "Seinfeld!" And that's when the rivalry starts.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's a hilarious meme that made me laugh out loud.
Because like Newman is Newman. We never get a first name. And it takes us a while to get a first name for Kramer.
Yeah.
So that is amazing. I like, and like that would like play into it. Like the fact that like he's like competing with Jerry because they have the same name, and he doesn't want people to know that all this kind of stuff, and they don't want to get confused. Oh man, there's a lot. I feel like if Seinfeld had went on for like 20 seasons, or like it was just still going on for some reason, we would have thought that. That's the finale we wanted, Larry David. We wanted Jerry waking up in a hospital, and it was all a dream. It was all a dream, or it was zombies. I love. There's jokes about I've seen around where it's like the Seinfeld crew, but like it's during the pandemic. And like, like storylines that would happen on the show, like all these things that are happening, and like like George doing really petty things still with like it's just like I need to look that up. That's some funny stuff, not theory related, but just good stuff.
Yeah, like there was this fan video that someone made where he played like every Seinfeld character, and it was like Seinfeld but during the pandemic or something, and it was hilarious.
They do. There's one little reunion episode. I think it's from Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah.
They come back, and it's George has been married, and now he's divorced, I think, and now he has an app with it's like a bathroom toilet app.
iToilet, yeah.
So good. Oh, I could go on and on about Seinfeld and okay. We ain't got that much time. All right, we got one more. It's my number one, and it's something that I really is low hanging fruit for me. But I thought about it today. I'm like, this has to be my number one, even though it's probably one of the most popular theories, like period, and probably the most memed theory I've ever seen.
I think I know what this is going to be, but go on.
I think you know where I'm going with this. So it is the theory that the Indiana Jones films were all a dream of Han Solo while he was in Carbonite.
Oh, that's not what I expected.
What were you expecting?
Well, I thought you were going to say something that would have prompted me to say your Snoke theory sucks.
Snoke was tempting. It's funny, we got no Snoke theories. No Snoke theories tonight.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot. Like, some of them are pretty stupid, but there was a lot of Snoke speculation.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. But so this is the one that it's memed 1,000 times. It's basically like, and I like the idea of like just Han Solo in hibernation sickness, and he's in the Carbonite block, and he's in there for a year or two. And now there's a whole comic about what's going on while he's in the Carbonite block, but like, and he just imagines all this and all this stuff, and it feels like something like he would imagine, which is weird because it's the real world, kinda, and it's Han Solo imagining the real world. It messes with your brain a little bit, but I really like this one just as it's one of those that you see it and you're like, wait a minute, okay. I like that. I don't know if it works, but I like that. It's funny.
Yeah, like there was that Star Wars Tales comic where it was basically what if Han and Chewie landed on Earth, and like Han gets killed and Chewie becomes Bigfoot, and then Indiana Jones finds Han's remains. But like people on the internet take that step further and make it a dream within the thing. And yeah, it's something.
It really is. So that's it. We did it, didn't we? I guess.
Yeah, we read all the lists.
That was a lot of fun. And I appreciate you, Steven, for coming along and sharing your theories and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, this is a lot of fun. And this was something that especially shout out to Jesse for coming up with this idea. And I shouldn't have doubted you, Jesse. I really shouldn't have, because halfway through this, I'm like, are we going to get any like really good lists? And then they started pouring in, and we got a lot of great ones. And I wish we could have stayed a lot longer on some of these things because there's a lot of things. So yeah, if there's any of them that you'd like us to come back to, if you want us to like do more theory episodes or something, we're always looking for different ideas for possible episode titles and whatever. So yeah, if you want us to come and analyze something more, go through the Pixar theory or something. We've talked about it over the years. Be fun to come back to these. So yeah, let us know on Facebook. Real quick, I will go through our plugs really quick. So you can find us at IPC Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. That's our main social medias. You can follow Zach at Zach the Voice. That's ZACH the Voice on there. And also you can find me at Ben Hart with no E on the Twitter and the Facebook and the Instagram and all that kind of stuff. And of course at Culture Slate and at the SWU. Steven, real quick, tell them where they can find you on the social medias and what you're doing.
Yeah, they can find me at Steven Schinder on Instagram and Twitter, Steven Schinder Storytelling on Facebook. You can also find my book, Lemons Will Like Rain. It's on Amazon. More info on that at stevenschinder.com. And I'm still trying to get the second book finished and ready to self-publish. So keep an eye out for that. And you can also find me on two podcasts that I do regularly. One is Delayed Replay, where we pretend we're in the universe where movies came out on time, and we like make stuff up on the spot. The episode coming out tomorrow is on Resident Evil: Welcome to Raccoon City. It's the new reboot movie that was supposed to come out this month. So yeah, that's a lot of fun, and you can find Delayed Replay on Spotify, Apple, or go to Anchor, and you'll see all the platforms it's on. And you can also find me on Yes Shift, which is spelled YESSHIFT. You could go to anchor.fm/YesShift and see all the platforms that's on. It's basically me and my dad talking about the band Yes and related activities by their members, past and present. Lots of different topics, and it's a lot of fun. And cool. Yeah, I think that's everything. So yeah, thanks for having me on this episode, Ben.
Well, thank you very much for co-hosting with me, because I would have been lost without you, quite literally. This would have been, a lot less fun. All right. I'm not up to doing this show alone. All right. I just really don't think you guys are ready for that. And I'm not ready for that either. And Steven's just too good of a guest not to have on. So, and hopefully maybe we'll have you on pretty soon in the near future. Maybe because we're going to have a few more weeks of being Zachless, which is unfortunate, but we'll try to get some interesting people on the show in the meantime to fill that void, and maybe even people you haven't seen on the show in a while. It'd be great. Real quick, I will point you in the direction of our Patreon. Again, patreon.com/IPC podcast is where you can find us and support the show, and literally helps us, goes right back into the show, helps us do a lot of interesting things. And we're doing some bonus shows like that too. We do bonus episodes of RIPC, which are exclusive to Patreon. So if you want to get those out, I believe, can I say this? I'm going to say it. I believe we are working on currently a review of The Suicide Squad. That's going to be coming up pretty soon. So if you're a patron right now, or you want to become a patron, you can not only have access to listen to that, but you can actually be on that episode to talk about it with us. So that'd be a lot of fun. Podbean.com is where you can find our audio episodes. IPCpodcast.podbean.com is where you can find that. Check out our swag, tpublic.com/user/IPC podcast. And of course, you can get all kinds of stuff from TeePublic. Huggers, shirts, all kinds of stuff, and you get to rep the brand. It's pretty cool. And where you're watching, if you're watching this right now, you're watching on Fandom Empire. That's where we broadcast every bi-weekly, every Friday night, every other week. We did miss a couple. We missed an episode a few weeks ago. We're back, and we should be back for the foreseeable future, and no problems. And so come back every other Friday night. On Friday nights on Fandom Empire. I said Friday night twice. I don't know why I did that. I don't know why I had to point it out, but here we are. But yeah, Fandom Empire, they're great to us, and definitely go check out. And there's a lot of other stuff happening on Fandom Empire too. There's a lot of other stuff. We're not the only show on here. You need to actually watch their other stuff too. It's great. Please check us out on iTunes, subscribe, leave a review. It helps out a lot. And our episodes go up on StarWarsUnderworld.com, and they help us out. So that's good. And okay, really quick, Steven, do you have like 5 extra minutes?
Yes.
So, because we do have some late entries here that I feel like I would feel very sad if we missed these people, and I feel like we need to give them some time. So I got 5 minutes. If you got 5 minutes, let's run through these really quick.
Oh yeah, let's blaze through these.
Yeah. So first off, Kenny not only had some theories, but he had some what ifs for us. So here's what he said. He says some what if fan theories and a few of my own. He says number one, Star Wars. If it did not turn out to be Darth Vader was Luke's father, how would the course of Star Wars history be changed? That's interesting. Star Trek, number one, if Picard was written out after the Best of Both Worlds, Part 2, how would the course of TNG history would have changed? If James T. Kirk did not die in Star Trek Generations, how would he have continued his career in Starfleet? Number
Those
three,
are great what ifs.
yeah, that actually is. I like Star Wars and Star Trek what ifs. Get on that. That needs to happen and start with those ideas. That is great. Number three, this is one that we've been talking about a lot this week. E.T. as a Jedi. I think that's one's pretty popular. Again, what if? Let's do it. Number four, the Disney Renaissance era animated films are the best, along with the Pixar ones. I think that's an opinion, and
that sounds like an opinion, but sure.
I think I agree with that. I think a lot of people would agree with that opinion. So good on you, Kenny. And here we are. Good. The Joker is the hero who saves Gotham, so he agrees that. So Kenny's, he's working. He's got these things. He thinks Joker is the real hero in the Dark Knight. I like that thinking.
Yeah, I got to look into this more later, but yeah, thanks, Kenny.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Kenny, for sending that in. And we got our good buddy Tommy Bradshaw. You want to read off his really quick?
All right. So Tommy says, if Qui-Gon lived, Anakin would not have fallen to the dark side. Yeah, that's a popular one. Like he's the father figure Anakin needed. There's a fan theory out there that in Avatar, The Last Airbender universe, each avatar must learn from the mistakes of the last and address them in their life. I am fond of this theory. Oh, that's an interesting one. It's the greatest teacher failure is, I guess, Star Wars and Marvel exist in the same multiverse. Interesting.
The multiverse, I guess anything exists in the multiverse, technically speaking.
Yeah, I mean, something can be a movie series in one universe or exists alongside something in a different universe. So maybe, I don't know. Awesome. Ben Braden is Dean Winchester's son. That's Supernatural related. Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about Supernatural, but sure, it's canon. Sure, this theory is canon. Darth Jar Jar laughing emoji. Mostly just can't think of anything else at the moment.
It's a popular one. It's a popular one.
Yeah.
I really like it.
Yeah.
And another late entry is from our buddy Matthew, and he's in the chat right now. Okay, I'm gonna need a clarification on this. He says his first one is elegance R plus L equals J.
I've had to Google this, and apparently it's Game of Thrones related. And I think each of these on his list are like they're all number one, and I guess this one is number one for elegance, the other one is number one for creativity, and another is number one for historical interest. So number one in different categories, I'm guessing.
Okay, all right, cool. See, I'm Game of Thrones. Woo! Right over me.
Yeah, I gave up after season 1. So yeah.
Oh my god. Oh boy, I gave up before season 1. I haven't watched any of it. Maybe one day. And the last one is from our good buddy Joel Davis.
Well, Matthew's other theories for creativity was Sidious siphons Padme's life force.
Oh, I missed that one. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
that one's good. I like that one a lot. I actually subscribe to that one. I actually like that one a lot because, like, it's like it kind of like, oh well, Padme dies in childbirth. She dies of sadness. What's the deal with that? What if Palpatine just killed her?
Right.
I know it's weird, but it's not any more weird than what's actually in the movie.
Yeah. All right.
And then Keeve Trennis leaves the Order in her present conviction that it has lost its way. Oh, this is High Republic.
Oh, this
stuff.
is High Republic related, isn't it?
Keeve Trennis, yes.
Okay, yeah, I have some catching up to do on High Republic stuff. Yeah,
I do too. I can't put my finger on who Keeve Trennis is. I know probably a Jedi.
Yeah, she's from the comics, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but there's a lot of speculation about one of the Jedi I know for sure is like shows up as the Lost 20 in the archives, and they're from the High Republic. So and there's some Jedi that are like really losing their way, really dipping into the dark side, doing some crazy stuff. So really interesting stuff. I need to get back to it.
Yeah, because I think in Legends Dooku was the Lost 20th. So yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So like I don't know how many's. I'd be curious to know how many is the Lost in the High Republic era. It's a few hundred years before. How many we've got to lose. Whew, that'd be interesting. Okay, so we're gonna end on this one. This is from Joel Davis. And he says, and I'm gonna assume what he's talking about here. He says, is Palpatine scarred face or is this a real one? So this is the whole idea of kind of asking the question of, is the Palpatine face that we see in the prequels throughout, the Ian McDiarmid face, is that his real face or is that a facade? Or
like it could be some sort of mask made with alchemy.
I subscribe to the theory that it is a mask that the dark side does stuff to you, and that if you use it a lot, it messes you up. And I think when Mace blocks the lightning back into his face, it's not scarring him; it's taking away the facade he put up, and you're showing his real face. He talks about in Rise of Skywalker, I've died before. Like, the guy's clearly been around a long time. He's probably been doing Sith magic for a long time, trying to keep himself alive. Like that, I think that makes sense to me. I've always liked that theory.
Yeah, and when Luke gets Force lightning, he doesn't get deformed, so that kind of feeds into that theory.
Like, he gets arguably just as much, if not more, Sith lightning. Yeah, like you would expect, like him just turn into Last Jedi Luke Skywalker if that was if it was like advanced aging on Sith lightning. Yeah.
Or it turns them into Skeletor, and that's why it's Mark Hamill voicing him.
Oh man, he could do that. Well, I think we got all the lists. I hope we didn't miss anyone. I was doing my best to try to look at the lists and make sure we got through all the lists, and also not miss anything on the way and get the ones that were late entries. But I think we got them all. This was great. I think we need to sign off now because our producer Sean needs to go to bed. And we need to go to bed, and all of you listening and watching need to go to bed. But this has been great. Thank you so much, Stephen, for coming on again. This was a pleasure. And Zach usually does this. I don't do this. I don't sign off, so I never know. I usually just sit in the background and go like, yeah, okay, bye, whatever. I don't do this stuff. So all I'm going to say is, guys, thank you so much. Thank you for your patience when we were off the air. I know it's been sketchy, but we're going to try to be back on our regular schedule. We've got some awesome content coming up. I think you guys are really going to be excited about, and we'll have some awesome guest hosts, and we will get Zach back, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So without further ado, thanks guys for watching, listening, however you do, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. And may the force be with it. May the peace be with you, however it goes.
Send in your IPC fan theories.
May the peace be with you. I'm sounding Catholic or something.
And with your spirit.
Good night, guys.
Night.
This podcast is sponsored in part by Benjamin Hart.
That's me.
And yours truly, Zach Arnold.
And by participation from listeners like you. So let's tune in to another episode of
IPC.
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 IPC. IPC. IPC.
IPC. IPC.
IPC. The Intergalactic Peace Coalition podcast.
All the galaxies.
All for you.